Hi, guys. Back again with me in Movie Vault Recaps. This time we're discussing the movie Terrifier 3. Get ready, strengthen your mentality and stomach so you don't get nauseous like the audience in the theater. That said, many can't stand it. Well, instead of a lot of pleasantries, let's get straight to the discussion. Don't forget, if you like this channel, just subscribe so you don't miss other exciting content. The movie begins with a young mother named Jennifer waking up in the middle of the night because her daughter, Julie, suddenly wakes her up. Confused, Jennifer asks what's wrong, and the little girl says that she heard someone break into their house. Thinking her daughter was imagining things, Jennifer took her back to her room. Once there, she calmed Julie down and told her to go back to sleep. But the little girl said that maybe it was Santa who came to visit. Hopefully, Julie asks her mom to prepare some biscuits and milk, just in case she gets a present, maybe a new 100% promo cell phone from Santa. As she was about to return to her room, Jennifer sighed in annoyance as she realized her husband had forgotten to lock the door. It was getting late, but curiosity got the better of her and she peeked in to see if Santa had really arrived. However, instead of bringing an iPhone as she expected, Santa pulls out a large axe and slowly walks towards the attic. Suddenly, Julie panicked when she saw Santa coming out of her sister's room with his body covered in blood. Her breathing was ragged and her eyes widened in fear as she watched him slowly walk into her mother Jennifer's room. However, this Santa was not the kind-hearted figure she was expecting. He turned out to be a psychopathic clown who had just brutally murdered Jennifer's husband, as if he was roasting firewood in a fireplace. In a panic, Jennifer tries to escape, but her steps are halted when her eyes catch something far more horrifying. Her daughter, Julie, lies lifeless on the floor. Her body torn apart, while next to her, the psychopath casually enjoys the biscuits and milk that were supposed to be prepared for Santa. Five years earlier, right after Sienna took down the psychopathic clown at the end of Terrifier 2, the clown's lifeless body was found by an officer named Yudin. Alerted, he immediately calls his colleagues at the police station for help. However, something out of the ordinary happens. The psychopathic clown, who was supposed to be dead, came back to life with his supernatural. Even with a severed head, he was still able to slaughter Officer Yudin and his team with ease. To make matters worse, after finishing off Yudin, the psychopath casually wears Yudin's head like a mask. Wasting no time, he rushed to Gelora Hospital, where Victoria, a person who turned out to have an important role in his rebirth, had just given birth to a new head for him. At the hospital, a doctor named Chris Jericho was busy making coffee in his room when he was suddenly startled by the hysterical screams of his colleague, Alexa. Rushing to the source of the sound,
I need you to get down here now, so I'm taking a shit.
he is met with a sight that makes his blood run cold. Victoria is devouring Alexa's body, while next to her lies the new head she just gave birth to for the psychopathic clown. And as if the nightmare wasn't enough, the body of the psychopathic clown arrived in the room, ready to put his head back together. As it turns out, Victoria has now allied herself with the psychopathic clown. Together, they set off for the psychopath's lair to prepare for their next act. On the way, a street busker named Adel, who had just returned from busking at the intersection, accidentally saw them. His eyes light up in amazement, thinking Victoria and the clown's costumes look very realistic without realizing the horror that is unfolding.
Guys, seriously, you killed it.
Upon arriving at their lair, the psychopathic clown is seen wearing Adel's busker outfit, who also seems to have fallen victim to their brutal actions. However, this time there was one difference. The clown looked glum, his grudge burning after failing to finish off Sienna. Hateful, he plots a new way to carry out his act. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Victoria stares at her reflection in the mirror with a regretful expression. Now, her body is no longer human, she looks like a monster, a figure that even horrifies her. However, as per his agreement with the psychopathic clown, he had to undergo a hibernation ritual waiting for the right time so that he could emerge from his hideously deformed body. And the psychopathic clown did the same. He knows that the time will come for him to come back for Sienna. The story returns to the present. Sienna, who has been traveling for 5 years to complete her studies abroad, finally returns to her homeland. Her arrival is welcomed by her only remaining family, her uncle Greg, who happily invites her to live with his family. Greg feels sorry for Sienna, who now has no one but her younger brother. Gratefully, Sienna thanked her uncle for his kindness. Upon arriving home, the warmth of the family immediately greeted her. Her cousin, Gabby, seemed very enthusiastic about welcoming her back. Meanwhile, her Aunt Jazz was also overwhelmed with emotion and immediately hugged Sienna tightly. After chatting for a while, Jazz escorted Sienna to the room that had been prepared for her. Arriving at the room, Gabby helped Sienna pack up her things. However, among the piles of luggage, an old diary caught her attention.
I woke up back in the clown cafe. Nation.
Hey, give me that.
Sienna, realizing this, immediately closed the diary tightly, as if she wanted to bury the past that she did not want to reveal. However, Gabby's curiosity got the better of her when she glimpsed the writing about the psychopathic clown inside. Sienna, not wanting to be drawn into fear, tries to ignore it and calm Gabby down by telling her that the clown is just a fiction. Meanwhile, at another location, two building surveyors known for their goofy demeanor, Samsel and Yanto, are on duty at an old abandoned apartment building. They are assigned to conduct an inspection before the building is demolished. However, the quiet and creepy atmosphere of the building makes Samsel, the ignorant bald man, unable to resist playing a prank on Yanto. With a mysterious tone, Samsel begins to tell the story of a psychopathic clown that residents say once lodged in the building.
You fucking with me? Of course I'm fucking with you.
However, what started as a joke slowly turned into an unexpected reality.
This place fucking smells.
Inside a dark room filled with dust and cobwebs, an old rocking chair was still moving slowly, as if someone had been sitting there for years. Yanto, overcome with curiosity, hesitantly began to approach the chair. However, right at that moment, Samsel, who was inspecting the old bathroom, was suddenly shocked beyond belief. In a rusty bathtub filled with pitch-black water, Victoria was still soaking there after 5 years.
Hey, are you real?
Get your ass up here! Dennis!
Yanto and Samsel's arrival at the old apartment coincides with Sienna's return to the city. This event unexpectedly wakes Victoria and the psychopathic clown from their long hibernation. Without hesitation, Victoria immediately brutally finishes Samsel. The foul smell emanating from his body seemed to indicate how long he had been living in this place. After finishing the act, she rushed over to the clown, who was now enjoying his game of pain. As Yanto is mercilessly tortured, Victoria feels a strange sensation, as if there is a certain pleasure in seeing the suffering of others. In an over-the-top frenzy, she is completely immersed in the horrific moment. As soon as Yanto breathed his last, Victoria felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. However, not wanting to waste any time, the clown immediately invited her to continue the hunt that had been delayed for 5 years. Elsewhere, Jonathan, a man who was once a victim of psychopathic clown terror, is currently in the spotlight. Rumors of his terrifying experience are still being talked about, leading a content creator to invite him on a podcast. With his Spanish guitar-like body, the creator was confident that the combination of his looks and Jonathan's creepy story would attract a large audience. However, Jonathan is still haunted by past trauma. He refuses to revisit the tragedy that almost took his life. In the midst of his inner turmoil, a phone call from his brother suddenly comes in. The voice on the other end informed him that he had returned and was now at his uncle's house. Jonathan was immediately filled with happiness. Without a second thought, he planned to immediately reunite with the only family he still had. Meanwhile, in his dark and creepy lair, the psychopathic clown was designing something far more terrifying. His hands are busy preparing a new weapon that uses liquid nitrogen. In his crazy experiment, he uses a mouse as a test object. The moment the deadly liquid touched the poor creature's tiny body, it was frozen solid in an instant. A look of satisfaction was etched on the clown's face. The experiment was a success. And now, the deadly weapon was ready to be used for the next hunt. That night, the psychopathic clown wandered around in search of entertainment. His steps came to a halt when he spotted a relaxed-looking man enjoying a drink at a bar.
Well, now hold on, now listen.
The man, a Santa named Shaylee, was intrigued by the clown's quirky and eccentric presence. Laughing out loud, he called him over to join him. Looking cool and confident, the clown approached, carrying a black garbage bag that he had been carrying all the way. There was something in it, something he wanted to show. The drunks in the bar laughed heartily, taking the clown as entertainment. The atmosphere became more relaxed, until Shaylee offered to treat them all to a glass of their signature drink. However, Shaylee's patience began to run out. The clown's behavior was getting stranger and more annoying, making him upset.
Oh, shit.
He asked the clown to leave immediately. Unfortunately, the request only made the clown worse.
Normal, sit down! Sit down!
As if to make fun of him further. Shaylee got even angrier, especially after the clown started taunting him like a tantruming child. The situation turns into true horror when Steve and CB Walk, two of Shaylee's friends, suddenly die horribly.
I tell you again.
Oh no! Oh God! Oh God, no! No, no, please! Please! Please!
The atmosphere that was initially full of laughter turns into a nightmare. Shaylee, who is now mentally challenged and frightened, tries to apologize. In his deep fear, he was even willing to give his Santa costume as a form of begging for forgiveness.
Pay attention to me! Please, God! Oh, God, help me, please!
No, no, wait, listen to me. No!
No! Sorry!
However, the horrifying moment intensified when a strange sound echoed from the speakers. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Sienna suddenly recalls the terror of the psychopathic clown that haunted her 5 years ago. Not wanting to be haunted by the past, she finally meets Jonathan after a long time. To her surprise, her little brother has now grown into a teenager. In the midst of their warm pleasantries, Sienna invites Jonathan to stay with Uncle Greg, instead of continuing to stay at the boarding school. However, Jonathan refused. He wanted to live independently, not wanting to be a burden to his uncle and aunt. On the other hand, their meeting was in the spotlight. People who had been following the psychopathic clown case were curious about what really happened to Sienna. It didn't take long for offers to tell their story and podcasts to start coming in. Hearing that, Sienna was disgusted. She still hasn't gotten over the horrific events she experienced.
Dead friends and relatives on a daily basis and being for one fucking second!
However, Jonathan was disappointed. For him, his sister was too harsh on people who just wanted to know their story. In deep inner conflict, Jonathan reveals that lately he has been experiencing anxiety, as if he feels the presence of a psychopathic clown who should be dead. On the other hand, Sienna tries to convince her sister that the clown is no ordinary clown. He is a manifestation of the devil who will not stop until his wishes are fulfilled. Sienna is also reminded of the mysterious letter she found, which further strengthens her suspicion that the clown is a demon in human form. As her mind continues to be haunted by the past, she realizes one important thing. The magic sword she used to fight the psychopathic clown was left behind by her father. Without hesitation, he decides to return to the haunted attraction where it all began to retrieve the weapon. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, the psychopathic clown is preparing to have his fun in an even more heinous way. Now, he's posing as fake Santa, complete with a black plastic bag filled with deadly surprises. An innocent little boy enthusiastically approaches the fake Santa. Tonight, there will be bigger gifts than just toys. Until in the middle of the giveaway event, one of the officers asked security to immediately secure the clown, because it turned out that he was not part of the official team.
Out! Don't come back! What do you think you're doing? I said...
I don't know what I got. Corey!
Meanwhile, the clown has just arrived at a party held at Jonathan's dormitory. As always, his act wouldn't be complete without his magical garbage bag. At that moment, in a seductive way, she tried to ask Cole for help in solving the psychopathic clown case. She wants to know who the real person behind the clown's makeup is and what his motive is for committing random acts of brutality. Not only that, Mia even offered to enjoy herself at will, as long as she was allowed to participate in the investigation. As a sign of seriousness, she climbed on Cole's back and seduced him into agreeing to the plan. But unbeknownst to them, someone had been watching their movements. On the other hand, the atmosphere of Granny's house was suddenly tense as soon as the news of the terrorist bombing that shook Oregon Small was heard. Based on residents' testimonies, the bomber was a clown dressed as Santa Claus, who had previously held a giveaway without any conditions. Shortly after the news broke, hearing this, Sienna immediately had a panic attack. She is convinced that the psychopathic clown who disappeared 5 years ago has now returned, bringing even more terror in the midst of the panic. To avoid the growing threat, they decided to evacuate the city immediately. Sienna also asked her uncle to contact Jonathan and tell him that she had to go home immediately because the psychopathic clown had returned.
She saw the news, man, about the explosion.
Okay.
Sienna.
Jonathan?
Long story short, after Sienna fell asleep, Brake said goodbye to go pick up Jonathan. Meanwhile, back at the dormitory, Mia and Cole's party was getting out of control. In the midst of the chaos, a psychopathic clown suddenly appeared and swiftly took the censor to stop all forms of immorality that occurred. However, fate had another say. Instead, he suffers a tragic fate, dying in a terrible condition after the body that has been used for fun is smashed to pieces. Despite his terrible condition, the psychopathic clown still tried to escape. He handed over his funny glasses. With a stumbling step and worsening circumstances, the couple's debut season finally came to an end. However, instead of despairing, the psychopathic clown was overjoyed and energetically formed a snow fairy symbol, as if celebrating victory. On the other hand, the house feels tense in the middle of the night. Gabby, who hears a strange noise, immediately checks it out, while Sienna, who is asleep, suddenly has a dream about her past. In the dream, she returns to her childhood, when her father shows her a magical female character he created. Her father explained that the character was the greatest female knight, able to defeat anyone with her magic sword. Curious, little Sienna asked, "What is this character's name?" and the answer was Wonder Woman.
Dad?
Before everything changed, her father once told Sienna to always be strong in facing all trials. However, after waking up from the dream, Sienna felt confused when she heard the sound of conversation from the living room.
We have to think about Gabby. As a matter of fact, you know what I think we should do to...
Then,
Curious, she tried to find out, but her body felt weak, as if she was a helpless wall decoration. In the midst of her panic, she tried to reach for her magic sword, but fate had a different opinion. She lost consciousness and fell unconscious. When she woke up, Sienna found herself trapped with her aunt. Fear gripped them, while in front of them, the psychopathic clown was engrossed in his increasingly gruesome act. With a face full of satisfaction, he playfully hangs the great awful on the Christmas tree, creating a sight that makes anyone feel sick. The incident left her aunt completely weakened, not only physically but also mentally, especially after seeing her husband suffer a tragic fate at the hands of the clown. In the midst of her grief, her aunt inquired about her daughter's whereabouts. Unexpectedly, Victoria, one of the psychopath's colleagues, had prepared another surprise. With a mysterious smile, she presents them with an extra gift tucked away in a birdcage. But what a surprise they were in for, not a bird, but a dried-up skull. Not stopping there, the psychopathic couple had another surprise in store. This time, they prepared a gruesome dish, a rat mukbang. Realizing that her death was approaching, Sienna's aunt could only advise Sienna to avenge the death of her family. However, fate would have it differently. She had to endure even more horrific suffering before death. Her body was turned into a nest of rats that crawled endlessly. Once she was satisfied with mentally torturing Sienna, Victoria continued with her master plan. She prepared to perform a soul transfer ritual into Sienna's body, which she considered more perfect. Confidently, she placed a crown of thorns on Sienna's head while grinning. "This body is now mine," she said triumphantly, "and you will live in this horrible body forever." However, before the ritual was actually completed, Victoria said something that made things even more gripping. As it turned out, the skull that was found did not belong to Gabby. As Gabby is taken away, Sienna wonders about the skull's true identity. But how shocked she was to realize that the skull belonged to Jonathan, her own biological brother. Her consciousness was instantly shaken, and her mental state was almost completely shattered. Seeing that Sienna was already on the verge of collapse, Victoria immediately continued the soul transfer ritual. However, unexpectedly, Sienna managed to put up a fierce resistance that thwarted the plan. Realizing her failure, a rage-filled Victoria immediately ordered the psychopathic clown to finish Gabby off. But before dying, Gabby asks for one thing, for Victoria to give Sienna one last Christmas present as a farewell. Not wanting to take any chances, however, the situation was reversed, and in an instant,
I hope you like it.
eventually, Victoria dies at Sienna's hands, leaving behind a scream that resembles the ghost of a squeezed orange. However, it's not over yet. As the psychopathic clown lay dying, A strange gas suddenly escaped from Victoria's melting body. A panicked Gabby tries to escape, but unfortunately, she falls into a demonic portal that seems to have no end. In the midst of all this chaos, Sienna is overcome with rage after learning that the psychopathic clown managed to escape. Even more shocking, he witnessed her body's regeneration ability similar to Logan from X-Men. Apparently, Sienna is the main target because she has something special in her. After all that, the exhausted psychopathic clown decided to put his act on hold. Without much drama, he chose to go home by bus, ending the terror for the time being. The movie ends with many questions hanging in the air. With all the horrors that happened, what do you think? Is this movie scary enough? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.